What's up, everyone? G Smith624 here, and today we're here talking about For Honor. Is it as bad of a game as everyone lets it on to be? Or is it a game that still has redemption in sights, that just had a rough landing? Well, here today, we're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be talking about the campaign, the multiplayer, what needs to be fixed if the game wants to survive, and more. Welcome to my review of For Honor. Now, the first part we're going to talk about here is the main story. The main story is split up into 3 different sections. Chapter 1, the Knights. Chapter 2, the Vikings. And Chapter 3, the Samurai. In each of the chapters, you get to play as 3 of the different characters in each faction. For example, as the Knights, you get to play as the Warden, the Lawbringer, and the Peacekeeper. In the Raider, in the Viking campaign, you get to play as the Warlord, the Valkyrie, and the Raider. And in the Samurai campaign, you get to play as the Orochi, the Kensei, and the... That's actually it. You don't get to play as the Nobushi and the... Oh, no, you do get to play as the Nobushi, I'm sorry. And you don't get to play as the Shogeki, the Conqueror, and the Berserker. So, those are the 3 faction characters not included in the main story. And story mode is essentially just for you to learn the game. Chapter 1 of the Knights is nothing but the Knights. Chapter 1, Part 1 is nothing but a giant tutorial on how to play the game, teaching you how to properly block and all of that. So, story mode, there are a couple moments in it that are actually pretty decent. The story overall is not bad. It's just kind of a story that was kind of feels like it was thrown in last minute. But there are some thoughts in there. There's actually character development, if that's what you're looking for in a story. There's character development in characters such as the Warden and the Orochi. Those are the names in the story. But there are elements of character growth from them in the story. So it's a rather interesting time. Now, afterwards, you beat the story mode. That is when I recommend going into multiplayer. But you can go into multiplayer as soon as you want to. You do not have to beat story mode at all before you go into multiplayer. I highly recommend it, but you don't have to. Now, one more thing to note in story mode is at the end of each chapter, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3, you will fight a boss. Now, these boss battles are actually some of the most interesting things in the game. And personally, I feel like if they use some of these aspects in multiplayer to make a new game mode, it would be extremely interesting and extremely fun. Like, 1 player versus, say, like 4 players. But the 1 player has a couple NPCs on his side, or some special abilities that the bosses have in this, along with a massive health bar like the bosses in story mode have. Now, the funny thing about the bosses in story mode is, even though they have the massive health bars, you can still cheese some of them, so to speak. Like, for example, the boss at the end of the Viking chapter, once you get him to half health, he fights you in one last spot. He runs away multiple times throughout the fight. But once you get him to half health, he runs to a final spot where if you just throw him off a bridge, or it's just an instant win of the fight. He doesn't get back up or anything like that. He doesn't have any miraculous health. Nope, you just beat the chapter by throwing him off a ledge, which is a viable tactic in For Honor. So all in all, the story mode by itself, if we were going off of pure story, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's nothing to write home about, but it is still fun, and you can still have... There are still a couple interesting characters in the story itself. Now, one other thing of note in story mode is Scavenger are the breakables and the points of interest. Finding these points of interest and scavenger breakables is really important. As you can see right here to the left of my character on screen right now is a breakable. I'm going to go break it in just a second, but inside of those you can find items such as steel, scavenger crates, or emblem items for multiplayer. These are highly valuable, and if you need a little more steel or you want to have some scavenger crates, I highly recommend finding them. We will get into that later, though, when we get into the multiplayer section. Now, next up is the 5 game modes of multiplayer: Dominion, Duel, Brawl, Skirmish, and Elimination. The 5 game modes are the core game modes, are the only game modes currently that you will be able to play in For Honor. Along with those, there are the daily orders and contract orders, which give you steel and experience upon completion. Now, you may be asking, what is this steel for? Now, steel is used for a variety of things. It is used for unlocking emotes and ornaments for your characters, unlocking characters in general, upgrading equipment, and changing the look of equipment if you do not like it. For example, starting as a level 1 character here, you don't really have that strong of equipment. It's just kind of mediocre. You have the bare basics, doesn't look that good. And then going to a slightly more higher level character, you have the gear, which you get at end of games, or from scavenger crates, or from scavenging, which costs steel to do, that give you different abilities and different stat bonuses. Now, I'm not going to go into the stat bonuses because they are highly extensive, but let's go into feats here. Each character has a multitude of feats they can equip for certain game modes. For Skirmish, Elimination, and Dominion, feats are active. For Duels and Brawls, feats are not active, but they are a wide variety of skills, passive or active, that you can use. For example, there are grenades, crossbows, bows and arrows, or there is a passive ability that lets you block more damage upon swings, or you do more damage if you get a successful parry. Now, getting into higher level equipment here, as you level up more and more into the game, you will get higher and higher level equipment until you reach the max gear score of 108. That is the absolute highest your gear score can reach per character. You won't start seeing that gear till around Prestige 5. And if you want to know what that level is, that is about level 100. But here's the scavenging in-game. These are what the scavenger crates are for. Scavenger crates allow you a free scavenge, essentially, so you do not have to pay steel to unlock items. And since this is my 108 character, these are rare items. Like the rarest of the rare. Maybe not max stat, but high level gear that is rather nice looking and has really good stats. Now, there is a wide variety of different gears. There is normal, which is white, rare, which is blue, and then purple, which is the legendary gear, which will show your gear score once you have it fully equipped. Now, on top of all of that, for example, like I mentioned earlier, here is the uses of steel. Like for scavenging, to change the appearance of a weapon or item, you can pay 500 steel, which is not cheap, mind you, to make it into a different appearance if you like that. Or you can use steel and scavenge in-game to upgrade the level of gear to make it better. On top of that, you can also buy outfits with more steel, or unlocking them by reaching certain levels in reputation. Then there's also the ornaments, which you can buy with steel or get with certain outfits that cost from anywhere from 1,000 steel to 5,000 steel. Now, the reason this is a problem is because so many different things rely on steel, and you get so little steel in-game. Like, for example, the emotes cost 5,000 to 7,000, or, excuse me, 3,000 to 7,000, with executions costing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000. Now, the problem with that is you get about maybe 150 steel a game with the bonus maybe 400 steel you get for order you complete. So you're getting about maybe 1,000 steel per game. Granted, this used to be a lot worse, where beforehand steel consumption was terrible, but patch 1.5 increased steel, how much steel you get in game by quite a bit. So thankfully, that's not as big as a problem anymore. Now we're going to talk about the big problems and issues with the game. And we're going to talk about the biggest one first, and that is connection. For Honor is a game where literally every second counts when you're in combat with another player, where if you can't move fast enough, or if your reaction time's not good enough, you will be punished for it. Now normally, that sounds like a pretty good system, except Ubisoft has decided for this game that instead of having dedicated servers for the game, they are just simply making it player-to-player connection, which means that if you have a closed NAT type or a moderate NAT type, this game will not be fun for you. If you have an open NAT type, then this game is a little more viable, but even then, open, moderate NAT types are really the only ones that can play it, and closed NAT types, you're pretty much out of luck. Because, even with an open NAT type, like I have, you will have so many problems trying to find a game and being able to play it. For example, here, as the game tries to load in the background, we will get maybe 15 seconds into the game, and then it will say, connection error, going back to server. This will happen multiple times throughout the day, which can honestly just kill the mood of trying to play the game. Because granted, it doesn't just happen at the beginning of a match. No, it happens anywhere from the very beginning of a match, the middle of a match, to the very end of a match. Literally, there will be maybe 30 seconds left in the match, and you lagged out. Somebody leaves. If that person was the host, you're fucked. The game ends. Like, see? Game lags, and then you're gone. Connection error has occurred. And this is a problem that happens constantly throughout the game. This is a problem that needs to be fixed, or this game will not survive. Because even if you are staying connected into the game, there is delays and lag that will punish you for something you can't control. Because half the time it will show you doing one action, and then the game will actually load to what actually happened. Like, it'll literally show you guard breaking someone, and in return, you got hit because they were actually in the middle of a swing. But it didn't show them swinging, so it showed on your screen that you got the guard break until you take the damage. Which is horribly, horribly unfair. So if this game wants to continue to survive, or wants even any chance of survivability, it needs to fix its servers. It needs to get dedicated servers instead of having player-to-player connection. Otherwise, it will not last. Because the combat is so frame-to-frame tight that if you are missing frames due to lag, you will be punished for it. And it's horribly unfair. The second issue with the game is lack of variety in maps. Now, from this point on, I want to point out that these are not in order. The first one was the only one in order. That's the biggest problem with the game. But the lack of variety in maps is one of, if not the second biggest issue in the game. There is a grand total of 5 maps in the big game modes. In Skirmish, Elimination, and Dominion, there is 5 maps. That's all you get. Each one has 5 maps. Granted, some of them are different maps. It's not the same 5 maps for each game mode, but it is about 5 maps. That, in turn, means you will be playing the same map over and over and over again, which gets very dull very quickly, although it lets you learn the map so you can handle the situations as they come, like knowing your advantages, like where to throw somebody off a ledge, where not to be, where to get someone into a corner so they can't properly attack with their longer weapons, stuff like that. However, it does get dull very quickly. Now, the third problem I'm going to discuss here is the problem with balancing in game. It is very, very obvious as you play the game that Ubisoft does not properly know how to balance this game. Granted, it is the first game of this type, but it is a problem. There are some characters that are obviously much superior to the point of being broken almost. Currently in 1.5 is the mode I'm reviewing. Warden is probably the most broken character in the game. And gank situations, as you can see in the video here, happen often as well in the 4v4 game modes, which makes the game a lot less playable as well. Now the issue with gank is, ganking is fine, it's a key part of the game mechanic, but the way to counter ganking, which is called revenge mode, just got severely nerfed to the point that you can't really counter ganking anymore. Because beforehand, you got revenge mode, and your attack and defense would roughly double, along with you getting a little extra health for a short amount of time, while multiple people are fighting you at once. This gives you an edge on being able to take on those 2v1 fights, or those 3v1 fights, or hell, even 4v1 fights. Being able to take those fights on and actually have a chance of winning them. Which was awesome and insane to watch. But Ubisoft has decided to nerf revenge mode to the point of it literally just gives you a little extra health and might give you a little more damage. Which makes ganking a very big problem with the game, because Ubisoft, instead of responding to the problem of ganking, because it is a game mechanic, I don't dispute that, instead of doing anything about it though, they have decided to blame the player base. They blamed us and our poor teammates' choices on letting us get ganked, even though the game causes problems with it. For example, bot teammates where they don't help you out in fights, they run off to do who knows what. Bots in this game are actually terrible, and it is really, really annoying to see them. Now, another thing that's really annoying is exploits such as this Warden right here, as you saw him. This is why the game is unfairly balanced, is because of characters such as the Warden, who can just shoulder bash or shoulder bash cancel endlessly. It is a big problem when a character can literally lock you into a combo that you have zero way of getting out of or punishing because they cannot be touched. Granted, it is being nerfed to hell in the next patch, but that is unfair balance in the game, and instead of giving other characters buffs to help with it, they are just nerfing even more characters. Granted, the Lawbringer is getting a buff, but I don't understand that buff. He doesn't need it. He just got buffed and is still a viable option. But regardless, ganking and unbalanced characters are a huge problem of online. I'm not complaining about ganking. Ganking is a fine mechanic. It happens because there's no way you're going to be on a 4v4 fight every time, or a fair 3v3 fight every time. Whatever. There will be times when you're on a 2v1, or you are on the attacking end of a 2v1, so there's two of you and one enemy. It happens, And it is the key mechanic of the game. If you can't deal with it, this may not be the game for you, because you will constantly be double teamed in this game. Now, those are the real big issues with the game. The connectivity, the unbalancedness, and the dullness of maps. Now, with those key mechanics, For Honor is still a fun game. It is still a fun time to be had if you have the connection to play it, even with the unbalanced characters who spam one attack over and over again, as you can see, and act like they're the hot shit because that's all they do, or the connection issues like you are about to see. It's not a terrible game. Does it have its problems? Oh, hell yes. But these problems can be fixed. Ubisoft is just choosing to ignore them. And that's kind of sad. This is a fun game, and it is dying because Ubisoft refuses to fix some of the key problems with its game. So, that being said, with all the components I have shown here, multiplayer gets a score of 6.5 out of 10, making the full game a 6.5 out of 10 in total. The game does have a chance for redemption, I will give it that, but there is a lot of key problems with the game that need to be fixed if it has a chance for redemption. Because this game is still fun to play with friends, still fun to fight people in it, and all of that, but lag and all of that is just going to kill this game. So with that being said, For Honor, I give you a 6.5 out of 10 with a chance of redemption in the future. I've been your host, GSmith624, and this has been my review of For Honor. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time on whatever game I decide to review next. Farewell, and have a nice day.